The room is quiet. The hour is late. Nothing dramatic has happened, yet suddenly an old relationship enters your mind with unusual force. You remember the warmth, the laughter, the moments when you felt wanted. You do not remember, at least not with equal clarity, the confusion, the incompatibility, the repeated disappointment, or the reason you stopped reaching out. Then your hand moves toward the phone. Yesterday, sending that message seemed unwise. Tonight, it feels necessary. Notice the acceleration. First, you feel alone. Then you select the memories that soften the loneliness. Then you imagine the relief of seeing a reply. Finally, you treat contact as the only reasonable action. In a few minutes, a feeling has become an instruction, and the instruction has begun presenting itself as wisdom. But urgency is not wisdom. Your loneliness may be completely real. It may be telling you that you need connection, conversation, comfort, or honest companionship. That message deserves to be heard. You do not become mature by pretending you do not feel what you feel. Emotional discipline is not emotional denial, but loneliness has not yet answered the question that matters. Is this person suitable for the life you are building? That is the paradox. An urgent feeling can tell the truth about your present pain while telling you almost nothing reliable about another person's character. It can accurately report, "I am hurting," and still falsely conclude, "Therefore, I should return." It can reveal a need without identifying who is qualified to meet it. This is where many consequential decisions go wrong. We confuse the volume of the emotion with the quality of the evidence. We assume that because the demand is loud, the direction must be right. But a quiet room can create a loud command, and volume is not the same as wisdom. Fear, waiting, anxiety, delay, brokenness, and stress recur whenever people describe these inner struggles. Their recurrence tells us that emotional pressure is familiar. It does not prove that one dating choice caused them or that one response will resolve them. Your pain needs attention. Your future needs judgment. So keep the message unsent for now, not forever, not as punishment, not as a game designed to make someone chase you. Hold it long enough to recover the authority you were about to surrender. We are going to move through 4 movements: pause, name, test, and decide. Then we will apply 5 tests to separate loneliness from genuine selection, chemistry from compatibility, fear from protective wisdom, pressure from conviction, and intensity from a relationship capable of supporting your purpose. Those tests will lead to a proportionate verdict: proceed, slow down, or step away. But first, you must face the question beneath the glowing screen. Do you want this actual person, as their observed character has revealed them to be? Or do you want immediate relief from this room? The message remains unsent. The feeling remains real. Now we must define what made it feel like an emergency. What happened inside you was not weakness. It was an authority transfer. For our purposes, call it an emotional emergency. This is a teaching term, not a clinical diagnosis. It describes an intense internal state that demands immediate relational action before you have examined your purpose, your standards, and the facts you have actually observed. The emotion does not merely ask to be noticed. It insists on being obeyed. That distinction matters. An emotion is a signal. A signal says, pay attention. Something within you needs care, understanding, or protection. A demand goes further. It says, do this now, or the discomfort will become unbearable. A decision is different from both. A decision asks whether the demanded action is consistent with reality and responsible toward your future. Many people obey the demand because they believe the only alternative is suppression. If I do not act on this feeling, they reason, then I must be rejecting it. No. You can welcome the information without accepting the instruction. You can name the ache, explore its source, and give it compassion without allowing it to select your partner. Listen to how authority moves. Loneliness says, make contact now. Chemistry says, commit now. Fear says, accept what is available before you lose everything. Pressure says, decide before you are ready. Each feeling may contain useful information. None has earned the right to issue the final verdict by itself. This is the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is organized around immediate relief. It asks, how quickly can I stop feeling this? Response is organized around truth and responsibility. It asks, what is this feeling revealing? And what action protects both my integrity and the future I am building? Reaction tries to end the moment. Response examines the meaning. Self-mastery, then, is not becoming cold, detached, or unreachable. It is the capacity to remain emotionally honest while delaying a consequential choice long enough to investigate it. You do not shame the loneliness. You do not worship the chemistry. You do not mock the fear. You do not submit to the pressure. You listen, but you retain responsibility. Even editorial evidence showing that audiences engage with themes of identity, boundaries, and emotional mastery supports only the fit of this framing. View counts do not establish psychological truths or prove relationship outcomes. Popularity is not evidence of correctness, just as intensity is not evidence of compatibility. Maturity does not silence emotion. It listens without surrendering the chair. And once the feeling is heard but no longer governing, a new question appears. What does a disciplined person actually do in the space between impulse and commitment? That space has 4 movements: pause, name, test, and decide. Then replace immediate reaction with a sequence. Not vague waiting, not anxious delay. A disciplined sequence: pause, name, test, and decide. First, pause. Suspend any action that would significantly escalate the relationship until you can examine what is driving it. Do not send the message, promise exclusivity, excuse the violated boundary, or accept commitment merely to escape being alone. This pause is not punishment. It is not disappearing to provoke pursuit, withholding affection to gain control, or manufacturing uncertainty. You are not playing with another person's emotions. You are preventing a temporary state from creating a lasting agreement. The pause is active. It is where your values regain influence. Second, name. Complete 2 honest statements: I feel, and this feeling wants me to. The first statement identifies your internal experience. The second exposes the action hiding inside it. I feel lonely. This feeling wants me to contact someone whose presence once relieved my loneliness. Or, I feel afraid of losing this relationship. This feeling wants me to overlook what happened. Do you see the power of this distinction? Before naming, the emotion and the action appear to be one reality. After naming, you can care for the emotion without automatically approving its proposal. You are no longer arguing with yourself. You are examining yourself. Third, test. Now place the proposed relationship or action beneath 5 lenses: loneliness, chemistry, fear, pressure, and compatibility. Ask what each lens reveals and use observed facts, not imagined potential, hope for change, or the version of the person you keep constructing in their absence. What has this person consistently demonstrated? How do they respond to limits, disappointment, responsibility, and truth? What actually fits and what merely feels intense? Fourth, decide. Choose the next measured action according to your purpose, your standards, the person's observed character, and the quality of evidence available. Decide does not mean forcing a permanent answer before you possess enough information. It may mean proceed. It may mean slow down. It may mean step away. Mature judgment matches the size of the action to the strength of the evidence. This sequence can govern the urge to return to an unhealthy former partner, accelerate exclusivity, minimize a boundary violation, or accept a relationship mainly because solitude feels frightening. Its numbered structure makes self-examination easier to repeat, and repetition can become a concrete practice. But a memorable format does not guarantee a particular outcome. It helps you ask better questions before consequences grow. So return to the unsent message. Pause. No contact tonight. Name. I feel alone, and this feeling wants me to seek immediate relief through this person. Now comes the test. Before that message becomes a verdict, the same proposed decision must pass through all 5 lenses. We begin with the feeling most skilled at disguising a search for relief as a search for love: loneliness. Begin with the first diagnostic question. What has actually changed? Has the former partner demonstrated new character? Has the incompatibility been resolved? Has there been honest repair, sustained responsibility, or reliable evidence that the relationship can now support the life you intend to build? Or has only one condition changed your present level of loneliness? That question can be uncomfortable because loneliness alters what you notice. In daylight, you remember why the relationship became confusing. At night, you remember how comforting it was to hear their voice. In a supported state, you recognize the boundary that kept being strained. In an isolated state, you begin calling that boundary excessive. The person may be exactly who they were yesterday. Your ache is what intensified. So ask the relief question. If I felt supported and settled today, would I still want this particular relationship for the same reasons? Do not ask whether you would want companionship. Of course you might. Ask whether you would select this person, their demonstrated character, direction, habits, and way of relating if solitude were not demanding immediate anesthesia. Then ask the standard loss question. Which concern, boundary, or incompatibility that mattered in daylight has suddenly become negotiable tonight? This reveals the price loneliness is asking you to pay. If confusion has become acceptable, if disrespect has become explainable, or if opposing directions have become minor simply because you want a reply, loneliness is not supplying new evidence. It is discounting your standards. Now examine the word missing. You may miss the person, but you may also miss familiarity. You may miss attention, touch, routine, validation, shared rituals, or the reassuring feeling that somebody chose you. These experiences are real, but they are not interchangeable. Missing how you felt around someone does not automatically mean the relationship itself was sound. Longing can preserve comfort while editing out cost. Here is the disciplined alternative. Meet the legitimate need for connection before assigning one romantic prospect the role of rescuer. Speak with healthy support. Return to routines that steady you. Eat, rest, move, pray, or reflect according to your practice, and re-enter relationships where care does not require romantic escalation. This does not eliminate desire. It allows desire to speak without making it responsible for the verdict. Wanting companionship is human. Wanting relief is human. But recruiting a partner to end an internal emergency is a dangerous foundation for selection. Loneliness can tell you that connection is needed. It cannot tell you who is qualified to provide it. So keep the person under consideration if the facts warrant it, but remove loneliness from the evidence column. What remains? Perhaps attraction remains strong, vivid, persuasive. But attraction has its own test. Can it survive an honest boundary? What remains after loneliness is removed may still be powerful. Conversation may flow. Attraction may feel immediate. Time together may seem unusually easy. Do not dismiss that. Chemistry is the felt energy of attraction, fascination, or ease, and it can be a meaningful reason to explore. But exploration is not confirmation. Chemistry tells you that something is happening. It does not tell you what that something can sustain. It cannot by itself establish shared values, trustworthy character, emotional responsibility, or long-term fit. Those realities become visible through conduct over time. Attraction may open your attention, but it cannot complete the compatibility report. This is why chemistry must meet a boundary, not an artificial obstacle, not silence designed to provoke pursuit, not a manufactured game intended to measure how desperately someone wants you. State one truthful limit. Slow one element of the relationship. Decline one preference. Express one honest need. Then observe. Suppose a new relationship feels electric. The conversation is effortless, affection is growing, and both people anticipate every meeting. One person says, I value what is developing, but I need us to move more slowly. Now the atmosphere changes. The request interrupts immediate gratification. What follows matters. Does the other person become impatient? Do they apply pressure? Withdraw warmth? Question the sincerity of the attraction? Or treat the limit as rejection? Or do they remain engaged, ask respectful questions, and allow trust to develop at a pace both people can carry with integrity? The boundary did not destroy the chemistry. It revealed what was traveling with it. Now apply the disappointment test. Watch what happens when plans change, gratification is delayed, or a minor disagreement interrupts the idealized atmosphere. Anyone can appear deeply compatible while everything is convenient. Disappointment introduces information. It shows whether desire can coexist with patience, whether affection can remain respectful, and whether difference produces conversation or coercion. Interpret this proportionately. A respectful response to one limit does not prove complete compatibility. One gracious evening cannot answer every question about character or the future. But impatience, punishment, repeated pressure, or contempt is relevant evidence. Excitement does not gain permission to erase it. You are not trying to drain romance of wonder. You are protecting wonder from becoming blindness. Enjoy the attraction. Receive the pleasure of being drawn toward another person. But let access increase only as character becomes observable. Chemistry can begin attention. Character must determine how much trust, closeness, and commitment follow. So preserve the attraction, but withhold the verdict. Loneliness has been heard. Chemistry has been tested. Yet another force may now begin speaking. The fear that if you do not secure this opportunity quickly, it will disappear. Fear rarely introduces itself as fear. It often sounds like practical advice. Accept the ambiguity before they leave. Abandon the boundary before they reject you. Commit quickly before the opportunity disappears. The command is always urgent because uncertainty feels dangerous. An unsuitable agreement begins to look safer than an unanswered question. But safety purchased by betraying your standards is not safety. Ask the direction question. Am I moving toward this person's demonstrated character or merely running away from a future I am afraid to face? You may fear being alone, beginning again, watching someone choose another person, or discovering that the relationship you hoped for is not actually available. Those possibilities can hurt. Yet avoiding them does not transform uncertain character into trustworthy character or misalignment into compatibility. Then ask the cost question. Which immediate discomfort am I trying to avoid, and what longer consequence could I be agreeing to in exchange? Fear concentrates your attention on the pain directly in front of you. Wisdom also considers the life waiting behind the concession. Suppose someone remains in a relationship marked by indefinite inconsistency. Affection appears, then disappears. Plans are suggested, then avoided. The relationship feels significant, but its direction is never named. They want clarity, yet they do not ask for it because the answer may close the possibility they have been protecting. So they accept uncertainty without limit, hoping patience will eventually produce commitment. But they are not preserving the relationship. They are preserving their preferred interpretation of it. This is where courage becomes sober. Courage is not forcing reassurance. It is becoming willing to receive truthful information. You ask the respectful question. You state what you require. You observe whether words and conduct agree. If the truth disappoints you, it still serves you. A desired possibility that survives only through avoided questions cannot responsibly govern your future. Fear can warn you that loss is possible. Hear that warning. Prepare for the grief if necessary. Seek support. But do not let fear purchase certainty with your standards. Premature commitment may remove one uncertainty while creating a deeper conflict with your values, purpose, and peace. There is, however, an essential safety boundary. Fear connected to coercion, threats, stalking, violence, or immediate danger is not merely romantic anxiety to be examined while exposure continues. It may appropriately call for distance, trusted support, professional assistance, and protective action. Pause, name, test, and decide must never be misused to keep someone near harm while they gather more relational evidence. For the unsent message, fear supplies no new proof that returning is wise. It only predicts the pain of letting the possibility close. Do not confuse that prediction with direction. And before fear influences the verdict, ask one more question. Is this deadline truly yours, or have you begun living by someone else's clock? Fear generates urgency from within. Pressure gives that urgency a voice from outside. It may sound like age expectations, repeated family questions, friends announcing engagements, curated comparisons, community norms, or a partner demanding an answer before sufficient clarity exists. None of these influences must be imaginary to be dangerous. A borrowed clock can create a real deadline and still lead to a life that is not yours. Begin with the voice test. Write down the exact sentence creating urgency. I should have settled down by now. Everyone else is moving forward. If I need more time, I will lose this person. Then ask, whose language does this resemble? Whose fear is speaking? Whose expectation have I absorbed? Pressure becomes powerful when you repeat another person's conclusion in your own voice. Then apply the consequence test. Who is demanding the speed, and who will actually live inside the result? Family members may ask the questions. Friends may celebrate milestones. A community may reward a certain timetable, but they will not inhabit the daily character of the relationship. They will not carry its unresolved contradictions, negotiate its boundaries, or build its future. The person who lives with the consequences must retain responsibility for the pace and basis of the choice. Imagine attending a gathering where someone announces an engagement. The room erupts. Photographs are taken. Questions about your relationship begin. Hours earlier, you were honestly concerned about its inconsistency. Now comparison compresses your thinking. Suddenly, preserving the relationship feels urgent, not because the person demonstrated new character, but because another person reached a milestone. Nothing about your relationship changed. The social atmosphere changed. This does not mean timelines are irrelevant. Two people may responsibly discuss direction, readiness, commitment, and how long they are willing to remain uncertain. A mutually considered timeline can protect both people from indefinite ambiguity. Healthy clarity says, let us tell the truth about what we want and whether our paths align. Coercive urgency says, give me the answer I want before you have enough freedom or evidence to choose it responsibly. Do not confuse discernment with passivity. You are not entitled to keep another person waiting forever while avoiding necessary truth. But neither is anyone entitled to use withdrawal, comparison, shame, or artificial scarcity to force commitment. Honest timelines preserve consent. Pressure attempts to bypass it. Pressure may reveal a legitimate desire for direction. Hear that desire. Address it directly. Yet urgency cannot identify the right person, establish compatibility, or erase an observed contradiction. So clear the borrowed deadlines from the unsent message. No family question, social comparison, or imagined race makes returning wiser. Four forces have now spoken: loneliness, chemistry, fear, and pressure. None can support the verdict alone. What, then, can support a measured yes? Compatibility must answer. Compatibility begins where intensity stops speaking for the relationship. In this framework, compatibility means sufficient alignment for the level of commitment you are considering. A conversation requires less evidence than exclusivity. Exclusivity requires less evidence than a lifelong partnership. Compatibility is not identical personality, uninterrupted ease, or certainty about the future. It is enough truth, alignment, and character to build together without requiring either person to betray who they must become. First, examine values and direction. What do both people claim matters most? What kind of future does each person actually desire? Which commitments, convictions, and responsibilities are non-negotiable? Two people may enjoy one another deeply and still be moving toward futures that cannot honestly be joined. Affection does not make opposing destinations identical. Second, examine character through behavior. Promises matter, but patterns interpret promises. Does conduct generally support what is said, especially when patience, responsibility, apology, or self-restraint is required? Character becomes clearer when doing right costs convenience. Do not build a future primarily from intentions when repeated behavior keeps contradicting them. Third, examine boundaries and repair. Can each person hear no without retaliation? Can both tell the truth when honesty may disappoint the other? When conflict occurs, can they address what happened, accept appropriate responsibility, and make meaningful changes? Every healthy relationship will contain mistakes and differences. The question is whether those moments produce repair or recurring coercion, contempt, denial, and blame. Fourth, examine reciprocity and pace. Are interest, effort, clarity, and relational risk sufficiently mutual? Or is one person initiating every serious conversation, explaining every contradiction, sustaining every hope, and carrying the entire imagined future? Mutuality need not look mechanically equal in every moment. But a relationship cannot be responsibly advanced by one person's effort and two people's potential. Consider a couple with extraordinary chemistry. They feel alive together. Yet one wants a future the other has clearly rejected. One repeatedly pushes against stated limits, apologizes when conflict erupts, then resumes the same conduct. Their intensity is real. So are their incompatible plans and strained boundaries. The feeling cannot revise those facts. It can only make ignoring them more tempting. Compatibility does not demand perfection. Ordinary differences in temperament, preference, habit, and style can often be understood and negotiated. But a direct conflict involving a declared non-negotiable deserves honest weight. Optimism is not permission to erase what both people have already made clear. Audience interest in themes of identity and boundaries may support the relevance of asking these questions. It does not validate the criteria or guarantee an outcome. The relationship itself must supply the evidence. Now return to the unsent message. Is there observed alignment in values and direction? Has conduct changed enough to support trust? Were boundaries respected, injuries repaired, effort reciprocated, and pace carried by both people? If the answer rests mainly on remembered warmth and imagined improvement, compatibility has not supplied a measured yes. If sustained evidence answers differently, continued exploration may be warranted. All 5 tests have now produced information. Do not remain trapped in analysis. Place the evidence beside the commitment being considered. The next responsibility is to decide proportionately. Proceed, slow down, or step away. A framework proves its value when examination becomes action. So gather the 5 tests onto one decision page. Create 5 columns. Present emotion, the action it demands, observe facts, the relevant standard, and the next proportionate step. This page separates what you feel from what you know, and what you know from what you should do. Now choose among 3 verdicts. Proceed when emergency relief is not carrying the decision and the available pattern supports the access or commitment you are considering. Proceed does not mean surrender every boundary or declare a future the evidence has not established. It means take the next honest step, continue the conversation, accept another meeting, or deepen commitment only to the degree that conduct has earned it. A measured yes respects both affection and reality. Slow down when emotion is elevated, important information is missing, or the relationship has not been observed through enough relevant situations. Perhaps you have seen attraction but not disappointment, promises but not follow through, apology but not sustained change. Slowing down is not a hidden penalty. It is a transparent decision about pace. It may sound like this: my interest is real and I want to continue, but I need more time and experience before making this commitment. That is not passivity. Pausing does not mean refusing to communicate, disappearing, or leaving another person suspended while you avoid responsibility. You can be clear about your interest, your concern, and the pace you can honestly support. Restraint with communication is maturity. Silence used for control is manipulation. Step away when the relationship contradicts a declared non-negotiable, personal safety, consent, or an essential boundary. Step away when an unhealthy pattern survives honest conversation, apology, and repeated opportunities for repair. You do not need perfect certainty to honor decisive evidence. When the central problem is not missing information but recurring conduct, more waiting may only provide the pattern another occasion to repeat itself. But do not turn discernment into endless postponement. Name the precise unanswered question. What conduct must be observed? What conversation must occur? What change must become consistent? Then establish a reasonable review point. You are not waiting for impossible assurance. You are gathering information relevant to a defined decision. Now, return to the phone in the quiet room. If only the loneliness has changed while the old incompatibilities, damaged boundaries, and unreliable patterns remain, do not reopen the relationship to obtain relief. The message stays unsent. If character, circumstances, and alignment have genuinely changed, do not leap from one emotional night into instant recommitment. Consider only the next measured conversation. Discernment does not require certainty. It requires the size of your choice to match the quality of your evidence. And the next task is to practice this before another urgent night demands an answer. For the next 7 days, do not begin by trying to eliminate every romantic impulse. Begin by noticing one recurring impulse before you obey it. Perhaps you rush toward reassurance, excuse inconsistency, accelerate closeness, or reach backward when loneliness rises. Observe without condemning yourself. Awareness comes before correction. You cannot govern what you refuse to see. Each time the impulse could produce a consequential action, write 4 lines. What I feel, what this feeling wants me to do, what I actually know. Which value or standard should govern my next step? Keep the language plain. The purpose is not to sound wise. The purpose is to separate emotion, demand, evidence, and authority. Then begin with one test. Choose the test connected to your strongest recurring emergency. If loneliness repeatedly sends you toward unsuitable people, start there. If chemistry makes boundaries disappear, test attraction. If fear, pressure, or compatibility is where your judgment becomes unclear, begin with that lens. Once the practice becomes familiar, add the others. Mastery grows through manageable repetition, not dramatic promises about what 1 week will accomplish. Choose a pause proportionate to the stakes. A message may require enough time to complete the 4 lines. Exclusivity, reconciliation, or a major commitment may require longer observation and conversation. The pause must be long enough to think honestly, but never use this exercise to delay immediate protective action when coercion, threats, violence, stalking, or danger is present. Safety does not wait for a completed worksheet. At the end of the week, review what you recorded. Which feelings repeatedly tried to take authority? Which standards vanished when urgency increased? Which decisions became clearer after the facts were separated from the demand? You are not searching for perfection. You are learning your patterns before those patterns choose for you. Now return once more to the phone in the quiet room. Victory is not automatically sending the message. Victory is not automatically deleting it. Victory is being able to explain why your chosen action serves truth, purpose, character, and the evidence available. Perhaps you leave it unsent. Perhaps verified change supports one measured conversation. Either way, the room no longer decides. Emotional mastery is not emotional silence. It is the practiced ability to hear every feeling while allowing purpose, observed character, compatibility, and proportionate evidence to choose the next step. You become trustworthy with another person's heart by becoming responsible for the authority you give your own emotions. That is calm power. That is grounded love.